What's going on, guys? I'm YST and we're back playing some Raid Shadow Legends. And today we've got a fun little topic to speak about because I'm going to be going over who I believe have the top 10 epic champion passives in the game. Now, passives are very important, right? We think about some of these legendary champions. For instance, Grand Oak Padre, who's on the screen right now in this finite run. I'm just trying to do my tournament for the fusion. But yeah, all of those buffs that you can apply to champions, or Harima's passive, Duchess to reduce incoming damage, and loads of times, these passives are what really brings these champions to life, and the same goes for these epics that we're going to be speaking about today. But yeah, throughout this list as well, it'll be really cool in the comment section below. Let me know who are your favorite epics in the game in terms of their passives, and the whole champion kit as well, I guess, and how they synergize. And if you would replace anyone else on my list, let me know who you would take out in replacement for the champion that you choose. We're actually just going to finish this run here before we get into it, because I need these points. I'm doing the Halloween Path event with just artifacts, and it's been a little bit brutal, I gotta be honest. Yeah, we're probably just going to be finishing it off with this, hopefully. It's not a fusion video, so we're not going to go into that today. But I will be summoning tomorrow for anyone who wants to check it out. I've got a few cheeky ancients to do, and I need to get my fusions as well with the Fawn Golems. So okay, let's head straight into the first one. So Geomancer. Surprise, surprise. These are not going to be in any particular order, by the way. It's just the way that I've written it down, I guess. So, Geomancer, in terms of his passive with the Stone Guard, he decreases the damage of all allies received by 15% and deflects that damage back onto each enemy under HP burn placed by this champion. So that form of damage reduction is huge, and I remember in like the free-to-play series, like it was the only reason I was surviving so long in my Demon Lord clan boss runs. And that carries into everywhere in the game, right? Against all of these bosses, whether through dungeons or Doom Tower bosses, and that damage reflection is massive, especially in the second part here. So whenever this champion is attacked, deflects 30% of that damage instead, and when deflecting damage on each enemy hit, has a 30% chance of dealing additional damage equal to 3% of the target's max HP. So yeah, reducing damage, reflecting damage, it's definitely probably the best passive in the game. I know it's not in order, but I don't think we can dispute how strong Geomancer is for players out there. And the kit itself as well, like, I know that we're speaking about passives, but I was selecting champions that are actually worth building as well, and I feel like that's very important. So yeah, so he fully depletes the target's turn meter and fills his champion's turn meter by the amount he loses. Great for stuff like Astranix the Dark Fae, or the Fire Knight, anyone that can have their turn meter dropped, I guess. And then applies that HP burn and weaken, right, for some extra damage from your team. He's able to remove some buffs from a target and decrease accuracy on the A1, and all in all, a really strong passive and champion kit. Next up on the list is actually a Lizardman. It'll be really cool if you guys, in your mind, was thinking the same champions as me. I'm actually anxious to know if there's anyone that I should have added instead of them. But yeah, for me, Venomage is such an amazing champion. Like, stood the test of time, I still think she's top tier. And in terms of the passive, it's very simple in comparison to someone like a Geomancer. But enemies under heal reduction debuffs inflict 15% less damage. So, you know, it's like the first portion of Geomancer's bit, but what I really like about it is, even against bosses that, you know, they might not be needing heal reduction on them, like, it's not going to affect the Demon Lord clan boss, for instance, but it gives it a value because you're getting such a big damage reduction, right? And whether that be like the Nether Spider or Amius the Lunar Archon, heal reduction is very relevant there. Like, it's just a real strong passive in my opinion. And she actually applies the heal reduction herself and then applies 2 poison debuffs, decrease defense and decrease attack, as well as some detonations here on the A1. All in all, real strong champion to make the list. Next up is actually a newbie, and I'm not sure how many of you guys know about this champion too much, or if you've had any playtesting. I actually don't have the champion at all, so I'm just going purely based on what I feel with the kit. And it's for very similar reasons to the first two, but in like the flip reverse of like a Venomage. Because allies deal 15% more damage to targets under heal reduction or a stun debuff placed by this champion. Now, she actually enables the heal reduction here, but single target. So not as, it doesn't have the AoE potential, I guess, as like a Venomage. But for something like Amius once again, or these single target bosses like the Nether Spider, it can be very, very strong, right? I think. But because it's the stun as well, which she does provide on an AoE chance, at a 60% chance, it's going to be impactful against waves as well, just allowing you to deal some more extra damage whilst they're under control, which is going to be very good in stuff like Faction Wars Hard, Doom Tower Waves, or whatever that may be, right? So really nice. So yeah, just enabling a 15% damage boost. I like it. I think it's really strong against 2 effects that she brings herself. She does self-apply with increased attack as well and has some respectable damage across her skills. And the damage inflicted by this skill increases by 10% for each debuff on the target. That's nice. If you can scale this against some bosses that you're going to be placing loads of debuffs, you can just bring the champion to her true potential. So yeah, I think she makes the list. Really cool champion. Okay, so we're going to go away from these damage increases and damage decreases. Let's head into the Knight's Revenant and speak about Miss Doom Priest herself. I'm actually surprised she's only got 423 reviews after all of this time. That's pretty crazy, right? Like, usually I'd expect it to be in the thousands as a classic OG champion. But yeah, what it comes down to is, with the Bolster passive, heals all allies by 7.5% of their HP, and removes 1 random debuff from them at the start of this champion's turn. So if you're in the Eternal Dragon, you're getting block active skills. If she's just there in the fastest in your team, she's outlapping everyone and just cleansing off these debuffs for your team. And, in the Demon Lord Clan boss, you could take off that stun debuff. In the Hydra boss, take off those True Fears. She's just a universal champion to counter all of these debuffing enemies. Then outside of that, we've got a speed for force champions, increased attack for some offensive support, and then increased crit rate on a random ally. So the kit itself, I would say, is a bit lackluster. It's nothing crazy here. The true value of this champion really comes from that passive with the Bolster. Next up here, I was actually thinking, does he make the list? Does he not make the list? But I guess when it came round to it, he's on the list, so he obviously made it. And it's going to be Vogoth. I think it all came down to he has 2 passives, and both very effective. And the champion itself is just very nice to have on a player's account. So with the Eerie Presence, when attacked, places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. That's really nice. I like this because if you don't have a leech champion on your team, perhaps it's in your, Demon Lord first team throughout progression, or just bosses around the board, or, some waves that you place provoke on, you're healing from the damage you inflict, so leech is a nice debuff to have. But if the attacker is under a provoke placed by this champion, has a chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on the attacker by 2 turns. So some skill manipulation as well, which is nice. And then with the Festering Dynamo, what a name for a skill, I love it. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage received, and only heals by 25% of the damage received from boss attacks, and this champion only receives half of that heal that the allies receive. And we've all seen these strategies in Bommel the Dreadhorn, one of the hardest bosses players can face in the Doom Tower. Those Dread Bombs are not the boss. Bommel's the boss, so you're getting the full value from the champion being attacked. And, you're getting those 40% max HP procs, and your allies are just sustaining throughout the fight. And that carries into so many other areas as well, when he's the target. And then attacks all enemies with a decent chance here of placing that provoke on all enemies. And also has a chance of placing decreased attack on enemies who apply the provoke. So damage reduction, right? And also some nice crowd control throughout the kit and increasing the duration of random debuffs. All in all, real nice champion and some real good passives to keep with the theme of today's video. So let's head straight up here for the next champion, and it's going to be, surprise, surprise, Inquisitor Shamael. Who would have thought it? Now, yes, the damage potential is crazy. We'll go in the kit first here. So attacks 1 enemy 3 times and ignores 25% of the target's defense. That's great in itself, but ignores a further 25% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. So you can scale this up to true damage pretty easily. And then applies a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. So you got crowd control, you're more times than not going to kill your target and get that crowd control out on enemies on a 3-turn cooldown. But in terms of passives, this really brings the champion's kit to life for me. So each critical hit fills the champion's turn meter by 7.5%, but whenever an ally receives a fear or a True Fear debuff from an enemy, the skill will instantly remove that debuff and fill the leader's turn meter by 15%. And this is most relevant in areas like the Hydra clan boss, where your lead position can get some more turn meter fills, right? And you don't have to rely on perfect Veil champions to counter the Head of Torment. Because Inquisitor Shamail's here like, I got you, bro. And he's gonna take off those True Fears for you, right? And just keep boosting that leader. So yeah, real strong passive here. And then an A1 to decrease the duration of random buffs, and when enemies place debuffs on an ally, has a chance of kind of retaliating with it as well. So yeah, real strong champion for damage and for the passive, primarily for the Hydra clan boss. One of the best ones out there. So this one here is actually a personal favorite of mine, and I remember the true value she had for my account when I was a progressing player, and even into the later game for areas like Iron Twins Fortress. I remember when the Iron Twins first released, she was a part of my first ever speed farming team, and it all comes down to, once again, the cheeky passive. Now, unlike some of these other champions we're speaking about, there is a drawback here, so there's a bad side, but a very good upside as well. But damages this champion by 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. You're like, damn, I don't want to be damaging myself, I'm going to be dead before you know it. But heals all allies except this champion equal to half of the champion's current lost HP. And over the course of the run, the more HP that she's lost through damaging herself or receiving damage from enemies just go up to like full health, it feels like. And because it's every single turn, it's one of the best healing passives in the game, if not the best, but it's at the kind of cost of she can kill herself. So you want to synergize her with a reviver champion, some healer champions, and just some support around her, right? Just to keep her picking her back up in case she does fall. But yeah, if you're looking for like a real strong passive healer, this is a real good one to consider. And then places a 30% decreased speed debuff on this champion for one turn at the start of each turn. So once again, not nice and fearing herself as well with the chance here. For me, it's more like for quicker battles. So the Phantom Shogun's Grove with your enfeebled tank gets killed or taken down to low health. She cuts in, takes a turn, fully heals them, and then leads into this A2, cleanses off those debuffs, and applies Revive on death. So very good for Phantom Shogun for support. And, Iron Twins Fortress, once again, a quick battle where you're not going to get really killed too much from this passive, and you can rely on sets to kind of counter that first instance of debuffs, like immunity. A1 heals by 50% of the damage inflicted when his champion has less than 50% HP, just to bring her back above board, and a bit of turn meter manipulation too. And yeah, nice A2, solid A1, but mainly the passive for some heals. Next up, a champion I've actually never used, like properly anyway, I don't think so. And that's because I got the champion so late and I already discovered a team for my account to take down the spiders. And it's going to be a Kemptom. Let me know in the comments, guys, where do you use your Kemptom in 2025? Is it someone that's fallen off for you, or do you think he's still relevant? Because with the Hexblood passive, has a 100% chance once booked of inflicting damage from one poison debuff to enemies under a Hex debuff whenever their allies receive damage from poison debuffs, right? And of course, this champion each hit has a chance of increasing the duration of Hex, and if enemies are not under Hex, has a chance of applying that to all enemies on a 3-time hitter. And then we got this poison here as well, on the A1. So you could kind of synergize him with some other poisoners, get those ticks, and then from his Hex, triggering that extra damage, right, to all of those enemies. And I've just seen some crazy teams in like the Spider and stuff where they just get melted from this passive. So yeah, real fun champion, and maybe I will give him a playtest for a champion guide soon. I'm going to actually build him up. I know I got him 6-star, but I've not invested masteries and stuff. So yeah, I did feel like it's not someone that I've got a lot of playtesting with, but I've seen the value that other players have gotten from it in the past, and that's why he kind of made the list for me. Next up, Rected Wrath. Like, hands down, what a champion, stood the test of time, has a lot of reviews, and players are loving her. Passively, with the Master of Ghost, whenever an ally under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff gets a turn, heals them by 10% of their max HP. This is a real nice healing ability, right? Because the champion herself applies continuous heals to those with less than 100%, also heals these champions, and applies the Perfect Veil to trigger this passive, which is what I feel like is very important. So yeah, I'm liking that, and also increases the resistance of allies under these effects by 50, so helping you resist some of these debuffs coming your way. And then we got a revival, placing a perfect veil again on those champions that's revived, and yeah, good for Hydra, good for PvE content, and even for some PvP progression. Love Rected Rough. Lady Annabelle, Bannerlords. This champion is, I would say, more niche, like it's more Bomb with the Dreadhorn specific, but what better champion could you use to solo the boss than this champion? Comes down to the Red Lady passive. So heals this champion by 50% of their max HP whenever an ally or an enemy dies. And like I was alluding to back with the Vogov situation, the Dread Bombs are not the boss. Bommel is the boss, so you're actually getting that 50% heal every single time one of those detonate. And that's why she can actually come through and do these solo compositions for Bommel, right? But also just very nice in places where an ally might die in PvE waves or wherever that may be. It's just, nice bit of sustain here. I'm liking it. Because it's whenever an enemy dies too, so every time that you're killing an enemy, this champion is just sustaining her health, which is massive. And then with the Sanguine Exchange, swaps HP of a target ally, and if this champion's HP is equal to or higher than the target's after the swap, applies a Revive on Death. But if it's lower than the target, places Revive on Death on this champion. But most importantly, increase speed on all allies on a 4-turn cooldown. So a nice bit of speed control here. And then just supporting some teams where they need it. Because the idea is, if someone's like about to die, you can kind of place that Revive on Death, and then you can she can recoup from you killing another enemy in a sense with the passive, which is nice. And then we got an AoE Leech. AoE decrease speed as well, with less than 50% turn meter. Bit conditional, but still solid. And an A1 to further heal this champion. So yeah, Lady Annabelle makes the list for 2025. Top 10 epic passives on my list. So that was actually it for the official one. However, I could not make an epic passive list without including Godseeker Ranieri. This was like a little addition I put afterwards. Because I was just thinking to myself, is it the passive that makes her a game changer? Or is it an A3? And I think it comes down to the interaction between the two, being completely honest. Because you're increasing the amount of healing allies receive by 10%, which is just nice, right? Like a nice little bit of extra healing there. But if an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit and instantly places a Revive on Death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. And we're seeing this in stuff like the Sand Devil's Necropolis. I could probably quickly show you a run, to be fair. Show you how that kind of interacts. So we go into the Sand Devil, stage 25. This is actually a team that I use, and a Godseeker is the reason why it all comes together. So we go in with Chronicler Adeline, place the boss to sleep, apply all of our debuffs with Riho Bone Spear, lead him with Bless Bash, and then we've got Godseeker in a very slow Stone Skin build, so she doesn't take 2 turns before the boss hits, which is very important. And then with that passive, lead position is going to get the Revive on Death, Riho comes back, we reset Newt, and then we finish off the boss. So yeah, that passive for like a real tough dungeon is just clutch and carries into so many other areas just for general support, right? So yeah, for me, Godseeker definitely makes the list for that. Let's head straight back into it here. So yeah, passive, preempting deaths, it's nice. You can use it against so many different areas. Revives an ally with fills their turn meter by 50% and resets the cooldown of all of their skills so that they can get straight back into the fight. We got an AoE with buff extension and healing allies by 15% of their max HP and decreasing the duration of buffs. Very solid for stuff like Demon Lord Clan Boss speed tuning. And an A1 for some further heals. So yeah, guys, on that note, that is going to be all for today's video. That was everyone that I had on my list. Let me know in the comment section below which champions you felt could have got replaced for somebody else, perhaps. Like, I'm not oblivious to the fact that there's so many strong passives out there, but I had to make that harsh decision and choose who my personal top 10 are. You know, you think about Dark Kael. You know, he's got that decreasing the crit rate of enemies under poison debuffs. Great for stuff like Demon Lord or Soul Drinker when he dies. Some fun passives out there, you know? And then he kind of detonates when his champion dies. And there's just countless champions we could go back and forth on. But yeah, wanted to stick with that top 10 and not go overboard with it today. So yeah, have an amazing rest of your day, guys. And I'll see you all on a video soon. Peace.